Hello, everybody. We're going to just give 3 more minutes for people to join. We're going to start at 1:05. Thank you.
Also writing it myself, but you're writing it in a way like, I don't know, comment on the character's, I don't know, relationship with somebody else.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm recording this so I can post it later.
Really.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So I'm posting this later if you want to check it out later. The purpose of today's meeting should be a short one. It's just to explain how to deal with paper twos. Some of you haven't been exposed to a paper two. So I'm just going to go through what a paper two is in economics. And then after my presentation, you may ask questions, and then we can ask questions about the content of the examination if you still have questions about that. Sounds good?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So let me know if you see the PowerPoint there. Anyone?
Yeah.
Perfect. Start the slideshow here. Good. So if you see the PowerPoint, we're looking at what let me just minimize this here. Yeah, what the paper two looks, how does it look like? So paper two will take 1 hour and 45 minutes to be completed. That's for standard level and higher level students. You will have two choices of paper two questions, and you have to answer just one question of the two. It's actually 40% for standard level, so it's a big chunk of your total IBC level marking, and 35% for higher level students. And the final or the total amount of marks is 40 marks for this paper. So here's a sample. Actually, this is the one that you have on the Google Classroom. They will give you a case study. So more or less, they will explain a situation or give you some context about a country. Usually, they talk about different aspects of the country. They give you some macroeconomic, I would say, information. Some of it may be more focused towards employment or inflation or a recessionary period, for example. They may give you another piece of information that could be related with micro concepts. And then always you will receive some data. So you will have some figures here. Usually what I have seen in the past is that the figures are more related with development and growth. So they may be about GDP growth, the real GDP, unemployment, like the one that we see here. So this is more or less what you will expect. And then you will have this set of questions. Usually they are about how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions. But I will go through how to deal with them. In total, this will be 40 marks. And again, the last question, or G, is the one that you will take more time and actually has more marks. So if we think about this last part of the question, of the whole set of questions, this is like a part B of a paper 1. So this is more or less some essay, kind of essay that you would like to answer. So I'm going to go through some of these questions in the next slides, but I wonder if by now you have any questions of the general idea of this paper. We okay? Okay, so this is just telling us that the questions that you will see here, they may be related with any part of the syllabus. At the end of your 2 years of studying economics, we will have questions related with microeconomics, macroeconomics, international trade, or we call it also the global economy. And we have a subdivision that is called development. So questions are going to be about all of these topics. And for higher level students, I would say expect the higher level topics to be asked here. Okay, that's what usually the IB wants to differentiate you from the standard level students. So usually we don't see the same paper on standard level and higher level because they may change just 1 or 2 sub questions more towards higher level topics. So if we go to this set of questions, part A and part B is like the less amount of time that you want to dedicate on them, because usually they have small questions that are related with concepts, and sometimes they may be related with calculations. I will show you later how does that look like. Part B usually asks you to explain using a diagram a specific economic situation. Should be very straightforward because they will ask you, using a diagram, explain why smoking causes negative externalities, and that should be your answer. Parts C to F, they will require a diagram and an explanation of the diagram. Okay, so we want to explain the diagram here. And part G is the one that you want to elaborate more an evaluation, or sometimes they ask you to discuss. So usually it's a discussion about a specific thing of the whole article, and then you have to provide some opinions based on your economic knowledge. So I have here something that may be helpful for you guys. If you go to the questions, you will see A, B, C, D, etc. up to G. A will have Roman numbers 1 and 2, and usually they will be definitions. Okay, so they will ask you to define any concepts that we learn from the syllabus. Remember, when I ask you to read the slide, usually those are the concepts that we want to remember. So they could be about micro, macro, global economy, and usually the concepts that they will ask you, they appear already in the text, and they actually put those concepts in bold. So for example, in the text you are reading, the UK economy is facing a recession, blah, blah, blah. So recession may be in bold, and then you will know that that is one of the definitions that you want to define in the questions A. Okay, so what is a recession? I wouldn't stop a lot on defining beyond of what the definition is about, because it's, again, only 2 marks. So what is a recession? And that's it. I may refer the concept to the context of what is happening in the UK, for example, if that was the question. So a recession means at least 6 months of negative GDP growth. And then you can talk about, for example, in the UK, it has been between 2002 and 2003, minus 3% of GDP, for example. So you can refer to what is happening in the text. Question B, usually they will ask you to calculate. So sometimes they ask you to calculate elasticities or calculate the GDP growth per capita. And because they are giving you already the numbers of GDP and the population, then you can calculate the GDP per capita. So this will ask you to calculate something very very simple. And as you can tell, question B is usually 3 marks. Okay, so we don't stop a lot in using a lot of time in terms of answering this question. It's very straightforward. Question C, they will ask you to use a diagram. So usually, again, they will ask you, I mean, I say usually because that's what we see as a norm. They will ask you to use the diagram. Again, could be about any part of the syllabus. And for example, it's an externalities, or maybe show how the fiscal policies have enhanced GDP, then you use just a macroeconomic diagram, for example. So they will refer to a certain paragraph of the text, okay? So I would like to invite you or to not to forget that all the answers, when we are referring to a specific context, they should be referring to the specific context when you answer them. Just let's try to avoid a memorized answer. Let's try to put, if this was the negative externalities in the San Jose River, then let's talk about what type of externalities are happening in the San Jose River, and that's what you are explaining in your diagram, okay? Question D, again, the same thing as above. Question E, the same thing as above, but they may be from different parts of the syllabus. So question D could be about theory of the firm or macroeconomics or global economy, and question E will be about a different section of the syllabus, even if it's the same type of question. Okay, so usually D, E, and F are those straightforward questions, 4 marks each of them, using diagrams and explaining the diagram in the context of what's happening in your case study, okay? It's very important to refer to the context of what is given to you. Again, they don't want just theoretical answers. And question G, which is the last one, is like this essay that we're talking about. So they want to ask you to discuss something. For example, they are telling you, using the information that we are giving you here, use your economic knowledge, use a diagram. All the time we want to use diagrams in economics, and then explain, for example, how the government may break the poverty cycle. We haven't even talked about the poverty cycle a lot, but that's about development. They may ask you to discuss why the policies that are suggested in this country may lead to economic growth and how they may affect economic development. So usually when we talk about policies, we talk about how they are impacting growth and how they are impacting well-being of people. So when we go to the development chapter of the syllabus, we will talk about how do we measure development. And some of you have already done that. In my class, I remember we talk about different indexes of development. For example, the Human Development Index, or you can talk about the gender equality, or for example, the Gini coefficient. So different indexes that you want to refer. Sometimes they are already given in the paper. So you can refer to those indexes and see how they have changed over time. And then you can discuss about if this is getting worse, this is getting better. Maybe the GDP is growing, but it's actually harming the environment. So that's the type of discussion that the IB wants you to be engaged in, using your economic knowledge and using the context of the text, okay? Because the timing of the paper is longer than paper 1, in paper 1 you have 1 hour and 15 minutes. Here you have 1 hour and 45 minutes. So make sure that you are allocating your time proportionally as the questions are asking you to allocate it. Again, in terms of the marking, I will allocate more time on the higher marks. And I will definitely use at least half an hour for the last question, okay, which is the longest one. Again, you want to use maybe 5 minutes for the 2-mark definition questions. So the concepts may not even take 5 minutes to just answer them, but make sure that you're defining them using an example from the text that will ensure that you have a correct answer there. And what we can see here is that sometimes labeling or not even labeling the diagrams or labeling them wrongly will make you to lose points or lose marks, even if you are making a right answer. So make sure that you label your diagrams correctly, okay? For example, also, we have seen in the past, if you make a wrong shift of the demand or a wrong shift of the supply, that's also something that is a wrong analysis, and that will be penalized as well. Here's, I'm gonna leave this slide 1 second for you to read. This is how the marks are allocated. So again, definitions and simple calculations will give you 2 marks. If it's a vague definition, then you will not have the marks. A clear definition is what we usually do in the classroom when you read the definitions and I ask you to read the slide. That's a more clear definition. Again, we want to be accurate when we say a tax is a certain amount of money collected by the government, for example. If you don't say that it's collected by the government, it's not necessarily defined as a tax. So these clear definitions make a difference. And then again, I will suggest that if you add to the definition some context of the paper, it ensures that you have the 2 marks there. Because maybe your definition is vague, but because you are referring to what the paragraph is telling you about that definition, then that will ensure that you have a clear understanding of what are you defining. I hope this is clear for you. Secondly, if you are making the diagrams, you should make sure that you label them correctly. And then again, we want to show the shifts, for example, and we want to use P and P1 or GDP1, GDP2. We want to use the marginal cost changing if we're looking at marginal cost changing, or maybe that's not the best example, but maybe the demand curve for a monopolistic competitive firm shifting inwards. So you go demand 1 shifted inwards to demand 2. Let's try to make very clean diagrams. If you are making shifts that could be messy, like the ones that I do in the whiteboard in the classroom, instead of doing 1 diagram, let's use 2, and then use before and after the shock, and then you can refer to the change in the price and the change of the quantity, for example, the change of areas. Again, if you're looking at the supernormal profits, or you're talking about the revenue of taxes or the government's revenue because of the taxes, then you can refer to those areas. So it's very important to make sure that your diagrams are going to be explained with the steps that they are needed to be used. In the types of question, for example, C, D, and E, is not enough to draw the diagram, but explaining it using the economic theory that is behind what happened with the diagram, okay? So one thing is to show a PPF. Another thing is to show how the PPF is shifting and what is the rationale behind the shift based on the context of the case study that you are using. And finally, the essay question looks like part B of a paper 1. Again, I'm going to leave this slide here for you to take a minute to read. These are some issues that we have seen in the past of students answering paper 2. So we want you to avoid these issues. Again, the time management is important. Labeling diagrams is important. Oh, maybe this is important. They say instead of talking about an evaluation that is more like a flow, instead of putting just a list, as we do it in the classroom, we do it in the classroom as a list, but we would like you to actually put it as an essay. Okay, so talk about the problems of externalities, who is being affected because of the production of whatever, maybe fertilizer that is harming the water and is contaminating the people's village down the stream. So you want to talk about a more holistic way of evaluating. And I don't know if there's a question there.
Amazon? It's on.
Okay, we got it, Madelina. Now we know you're here. And then we have, again, very important, if you don't refer to the text or the case study, then you are losing marks because you're just using a theoretical answer, and the IB doesn't want you to memorize theoretically any answer. You want to apply your knowledge on the specific context. Here we have 30 students connected. I expect 30 different answers because even if the theory is the same, maybe you want to use your own criteria to actually apply that knowledge into a specific context using your own vocabulary, for example. Students must provide a summary of the evaluation, providing a clear answer of what is being asked. Again, the purpose is to evaluate a proposed policy. So usually the part G is asking you, assess the policy of economic growth or discuss what is happening with the country's economic development when the government decided to reduce taxes, for example. Then you want to make a summary at the end of the whole discussion and make that summary to see, well, the purpose of the policy was benefiting the growth, but it created a problem on development, for example. That would be a good closing statement. And they say that the conclusion should lean towards the student view of the policy based on your evaluation. So again, you want to evaluate and maybe you want to give your own conclusion. I would say a conclusion is different than a personal opinion because you have a view of everything instead of saying, well, I support that the government shouldn't tax anything. That's an opinion. And we don't want the opinions to be taking over the evaluation. You want to say, well, taxes may create a or let's say less taxes could create better growth rate for the country, let's say. However, taxes may harm, or the reduction of taxes may harm the reduction of the negative externalities. And then you are closing here even by saying that you support the taxation, but there are some other consequences because of the taxation policy, for example. Again, this is just a note that I got from a workshop that we took some time ago. What are some suggestions for the essay? Again, very short introductions. Maybe you want to introduce the concepts. Again, each of you have your own style of answering this type of questions. You have already practiced a lot of paper ones. So I don't see many issues in you writing essays so far. Again, allocate enough time. Try to avoid bullet points. And again, make sure that you understand the nature of the question, okay? Sometimes we think that we're answering the question, but we didn't understand really what the question was asking. So make sure that you read the question and you know what the question is asking. Okay, remember that paper 2 is a big chunk of your whole IB mark. So we want you to have the highest marks possible here. And this is the mark scheme. I'm not gonna stop in the mark scheme, but if we go to the level 4, which usually is where students are around, I see, again, some Pearson students, they go to the highest level. The 13 to 15 mark in the paper, this is the question number G, I will say. So it says, relevant economic theory is fully explained. The demands of the question are understood. Relevant economic terms are used. Relevant diagrams, remember always to use a diagram if you think that the diagram can be used, okay? There is no wrong diagram as long as you are using it and supporting your arguments with a diagram, okay? As long as the diagram is correctly labeled, for sure. But my suggestion is that use diagrams as much as possible. Now, remember that if you use a diagram, you want to explain the diagram, and that takes time. So maybe at least one diagram is fine. If you want to use more than one, that's perfect. Good. And I'm just gonna leave you here with questions, but I have the example of the question that we have posted on the Google Classroom. These are the questions. Again, you know all of these so far. For some higher level students, we haven't gone through the Phillips curve, which is a macro concept that we'll actually address in January. But right now we have covered most of the macro concepts in higher level. The two concepts that we are missing is the Phillips curve and the crowding out effect and the multiplier effect. Those three will be addressed in January for higher level students. Standard levels, we have covered everything that you need to know in terms of macroeconomics and everything that you need to know in terms of microeconomics. Good. I'm going to stop here because I have spoken a lot and I hope that I'm not speaking to myself. So let's see if you have questions or comments about what I just shared.
Yeah, Samuel, I have a question.
Yeah, Alicia.
So our paper 2 for HL students, is it only going to be on macro, or is it also going to be on like the stuff that we did, like micro?
Sure. So paper 2, as we were looking at, it will have some questions that are related with macro, some questions that could be related with micro from last year, which is standard and higher level. But I will make sure to include at least one, if not two, questions related with what we're learning this term. Okay, so maybe there's something about monopoly, or maybe there's something about the law of diminishing returns or economies of scale, which should be included into this set of questions, plus the remaining part of the syllabus that we have learned, which is macro and micro from last year. Now, that is only if you choose paper 2, because you will have the option as higher level students to choose paper 1. The only thing is about paper 1 is going to be only about what we have been discussing so far, which is market power. I hope this answers your question, Alicia.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, guys?
Samuel, I have a question.
Yes.
So for SL students, like what do we have to do a paper two? Like what does it look like for SL?
SL students will have only a paper 2, and you will have actually 2 options, and you choose one of the 2 options. And this is what I have been explaining so far. So
Okay.
expect paper 2s only, and then I will be assessing. The thing is that because it's a paper 2, you have to study everything that we have learned so far, macro and micro. Okay, that's standard level students.
Okay. I was also wondering, when do SL students come back to class?
Yeah, the thing is that I'm not expecting you to come this term at all, because we haven't finished the higher level topics, which I was expecting that to happen anyways, because we started with lots of reviews, and usually I do the review at the end of the term, and I did it at the beginning of the term this year. So we may come back into classes in January. That's for all standard level students. So the next time I will see you is on the examination day, which is next Tuesday at 1 p.m. in the Maxwell. And then we'll see you in January.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Samuel, I have a question.
Yes. ma'am.
So for HL students, we'll have the option for paper 1 or 2, right? And then paper 1 would be what we've covered so far in HL, and paper 2 would be everything.
That's correct. That's a good summary. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. As you can tell, some students actually, I found that some students really like paper 2 because they are very simple or very straight to the point questions. You don't have to answer the whole essay, and if you have the essay wrong, then you have a lot of marks that are being lost. Here you can make one question that is wrong, but the next one will be correct. So again, it's up to you to choose which one do you want to do, and I will encourage you to maybe pick the paper 2 if you feel comfortable with the content, because that may enhance your predicted grades. At this point, these examinations will serve me to upgrade your predicted grades and be sent to the universities, because this is the purpose of the block week examinations. In other words, this is an important examination for you. And in other words, I know you don't want to hear that because you're stressed, but you need to know that this is an important examination for you guys.
Samuel, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, regarding what you said now, how much does this test count for like changing the PG and stuff like that? And the second question is, the 15-mark question, do we need to use real-world examples like other than that, or only refer to the case study that was given to us? Because like in paper 1, we do use examples.
Sure. So I'm gonna start with the last question. So definitely use the example that is given to you in the paper, okay? Don't use any other examples. Definitely not, because you may lose marks because you're not referring to the case, okay? So you want to use examples given to you already in the case study. So refer to it. They already are giving you almost the answer, because you can just take extras from there and quote paragraphs, etc. Now, the second question is that you can actually increase your mark by half of a mark. If you have a 5/6, you may go to a 6. 6/7, you may go to a 7, as long as you are telling me that you deserve that because it's more than 85% of your mark. That will be a 7, and then the table that I shared with you the other day. So this is a good chance to increase your marks by half of a mark. I wouldn't increase the mark by 1 mark. But maybe you have increased it already half in the midterm examination that we did in October, and now is your second half. So you may go from a 5 to a 6 directly between when you arrive to Pearson this term and December.
Samuel, some people are asking if you're gonna decrease it.
Yes, again, half of a mark can be decreased if this is actually showing me a trend compared to the last examination. So again, or if it's really, really low. If you have about a 40% of a mark, then I want to know why, because maybe something is going on in your life and we may be checking what happened, but otherwise that may lead me to lower half of a mark again. So that depends on where you at. If you are a 5, you may go to a 4.5, or if you're a 7, you may go down to a 6/7. Okay, I hope this answers your question, guys. I have only 5 minutes remaining in this Zoom meeting, but if there's any other urgent question, otherwise you can find me, you know where to find me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm just in 2 meetings right now. And after this, I'm not gonna be available, but any other questions, you can send me an email or you can ask me directly. Next Tuesday, there's gonna be a content review done by your econ peers or econ tutors, which is Diana, Noor, F, and Annabelle. So thanks to them that are helping as well. Can I see someone's faces to see if we are okay with what has been shared today? Yeah, good to see your faces, guys. Yeah, I see the whole group over there. Okay, good, guys. Great to see your faces. Not only a name there that is not enough for me to see and connect with you. Okay. Bye, Resi. Bye, guys. Okay, there's
Thank you, Samuel.
big team. Okay, we'll see you then. I'm gonna post this anyways on the Google Classroom by Noor, and then you can check it again if you want. Okay, have a good rest of the day and good luck in your block week examinations.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.